Hello, welcome to Sea Story Corner. Today I'll be talking about The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett and Link Nil. Yes, Rhett and Link. I only learned a few months ago they'd written a book, and when I did, I was curious. What did these two, who gave us Yo Daddy and rubbed some bacon on it, write about? What sort of story did they create? And I must say, wow, great book. They did chilling and suspenseful beautifully, but it threw me into more than one emotional flashback. And this is really my only legitimate complaint. Or, more specifically, this book didn't come with a content warning when it really needed to. The thoughts, denials, delusions, and actions of the adults in this book hit painfully close to home. To anyone who's survived emotional, psychological, and/or physical abuse should be made aware that this book might be difficult for them, or should be outright avoided. The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek has unexpectedly graphic violence, as well as psychological and emotional abuse. It would have been really nice knowing that going in, as it was quite triggering, at times leaving me shaking and unable to continue reading until distancing myself from the pages. And I know what you're thinking. Why keep reading when it's causing you distress? Well, my own writing triggers me. The point is to use that to help others. And I'm a little stubborn. Like, if I let those triggers keep me from doing something, then I'm letting my abusers beat me again. Yes, I know. It's more than a little twisted and broken. Partway through, I found myself wondering what happened to inspire this kind of story, this kind of violence, brainwashing, and psychological torture. These things aren't my cup of tea, but the writing and pacing were so well done, I wanted to keep reading despite everything. Even after calming down from being triggered, I was still gripped, wanting to know what came next. And that's saying a good bit. Between the triggers and my brain injury, I've struggled to find stories I can devour. Finding another book I can sit down and read without my brain deciding no was a thrill, and it made it easier to come back after collecting myself. Anyway, on to the book. The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek follow three best friends as they get wrapped up in the happenings of a cult run by a man gone insane from grief. The man, Mr. Whitewood, lost his daughter to a cursed creek taken over by an evil water spirit. In his desperation to get her back, he sets up a school for troubled children that he uses as a front to find sacrifices to get the spirit to give his daughter back. Knowing this much, though, don't feel pity for him. He's a truly evil, vile man. When it comes to child abusers, I have zero tolerance in my feelings towards them. The three best friends are making a film, Rex, Leif, and Alicia. Due to dueling pastors who have to keep one-upping each other over a blessing on the food. Yes, this was both asinine and perfectly accurate in its depiction. Rex signals his friends too early. Things go wrong in every way, and Alicia ends up bumping into Mr. Whitewood, which causes him to burn his hands on the grill he'd been manning. This in turn lands Alicia in the school for troubled children. There she's stripped of her name, and both psychologically and physically abused, until Mr. Whitewood unleashed an intensively savage beating on her, strangling her and holding her underwater, over and over, until he finally drowns her and offers her as a sacrifice to the water spirit. While all this is happening, Rex and Leif are struggling to find a way to save her, meeting a couple of new friends and allies along the way. Needless to say, they're shocked to learn she died, and furious when no one questions the hinkiness of Whitewood's correctional school, or the multiple sus deaths that have occurred there already. And the reason for this is because all the powerful adults in town are in on it. Even in the end, when Whitewood is given justice by his first victim, the sheriff and the other evil adults who were abusing and sacrificing children all get off scot-free, throwing the now-dead Whitewood under the bus and lying to everyone to save their own hides. No justice is served. Those who were sacrificed, save the main characters who escaped by the skin of their teeth, weren't saved. Heroics weren't rewarded. And those who escaped the school when it was finally brought down as the torture house it was, were sent home to eke out healing on their own and without even the tiniest bit of compensation. It was a brutal and unapologetically realistic end. And I really appreciated it. How often do the powerful ever face justice? How often do nobodies and the powerless get to save everyone, or bring down the establishment oppressing and crushing them? Reading the description of the book, I thought this was going to be a humorous adventure shared by friends. But that's not what it was. It was a story of three kids and their baptism into the painful reality of the world. I apologize if I'm sounding pessimistic, but I'm not. This is reality. It's a reality I struggled through for over a decade. People like this really do exist. I wasn't in a small southern town in the middle of nowhere, but I was trapped in a painfully small circle ruled by evil people who were considered saints because they held high positions at church. Those people brainwashed, pressured, and forced everyone to follow. to obey and never question them or their authority. And if you didn't bow down and lick their asses clean every time they shit something out, they punished you, dehumanized you, and they'd just as gladly torment and abuse those you care about if you didn't comply. And they sure as hell made sure no one would believe you if you spoke the truth about them. I apologize for cursing, but even those words aren't strong enough to express just how evil and vile that place was. All of this book was so painfully accurate to my own childhood, at least in spirit. Even the scene where Whitewood is strangling and drowning Alicia. I couldn't breathe reading that. Everything about the powerful town's adults hit close to home, but this hit hardest of all. It's been a couple days and I still can't stop thinking about my brother. He was only 6 and I was 10. He wanted to play at the local pool with his friend, so our mom dropped us off and I hung out by myself, keeping an eye on them as they played, until it was getting close to time to leave. I got out and started sun-drying, but my brother kept playing. I'm not sure what made me feel this way, but something was off. When I scanned the pool, I saw a group of teen boys huddled in a circle laughing, kids swimming and screaming, parents yelling it was time to get out. And then I spotted my brother's friend. He was by himself, pale, and staring at the group of teenage boys. I know, sounds like a scene out of a movie, right? Probably why I was able to convince myself for nearly 20 years that it was a dream. I didn't know who all the teens were, but 2 were the bishop's boys, whose mother was my real-life Whitewood. Only she wasn't mad. She was simply a sociopath and taught her children to be just as horrible. One of them was the son of the church's women's group president, and the other 2 I didn't recognize. I remember looking for a lifeguard, but the only one was a teen boy about their age, and he was pointedly looking away. I remember how mad that made me, how helpless I felt. I wasn't small. At 10, I was larger than some of my teachers, and only an inch shorter than my mom. Neither was I lean and lithe. I was thick, both with muscle and fat. Sure, I outweighed the boys, holding my brother under the water and laughing. I clasped my hands together. Running, I jumped off the edge of the pool and brought them down on the base of the neck of the closest boy. I was more than certain they'd drown me too. Heavy or not, tall for my age or not, all but one of them were taller. And I was sure all but the one were probably as strong as me, if not stronger. And they outnumbered me. But they didn't do anything as I grabbed my brother and pulled him up. He nearly strangled me, coughing and gasping for air. He shook so hard. He was so tiny. And not a single person there was willing to help him, or even witness what those boys were doing because their families had the power. I remember one boy glared at me, probably the one I brought my full weight down upon. But instead of attacking me like I thought they'd do, they dispersed. It was only then I noticed everyone was looking at us. Maybe I'd screamed and they couldn't keep looking away. I don't know. What I do know is that my mom arrived a few minutes later. My brother hadn't had enough time to stop shaking. And neither of us told her. Neither of us said a thing about it for 20 years. It wouldn't have helped anything if we had. And it would have only made our lives and our dad's life harder. Mom would have still refused to move away from that hellhole, and the power that evil, vile woman held over the community would have only been strengthened against us even more. As it was, the daily abuse at school and church increased and never stopped, as if saving my brother from that scum was an unforgivable sin. Even today, that vile woman and her spawn are praised for being such good Christians. She's the best mother and human who ever existed, because that's the chorus she wants sung, even if it couldn't possibly be further from the truth. Because she's wielded her power to the point that no one can touch her, not without causing more pain and damage to themselves than she'll ever sustain. Just like the shitty adults in this book's little town. I know. It probably sounds strange to like this ending with the experiences I've had. But no matter how many stories I've read and seen of the bad guys being brought to justice, it never feels real. And it always leaves me with this cold emptiness of how much of an utter failure I am for not keeping my brother and dad safe. I'm the oldest child. It's my duty to protect my family. But I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. And those stories reinforced the belief that not protecting them was because of my own lack. But the lost causes of Bleak Creek's ending, I don't know. I don't feel that way. I guess it's because it validates my experience. And that's a powerful feeling. And now that I've managed to get this many words out, that last thought might very well be why I couldn't stop reading this. This book didn't make me feel like I hadn't done enough. Like if I'd only tried harder. Only did more. Only... Just reading it validated the reality of my experience as something beyond my control. I still wouldn't recommend this book to anyone who's triggered by physical and psychological abuse. It's just too realistic in those respects. And I probably won't read it again. But it was good. not just well written, but powerful. Thank you, Rhett McLaughlin and Link Nil, for the book I couldn't put down, and one that didn't leave me feeling less than human. And to everyone watching, thank you very much for your time. Stay safe and healthy.